Goodness, the prospect of no international business in 2020. That's certainly pushing domestic into the forefront like never before. We're going to talk to two pioneers next. We're two pioneering women, actually, and we're going to talk to them about what's next. I'd really like to welcome Emily Subrata, who's the director of Sudamala Resorts, and Lucienne Anhar, who is the co-owner and managing director of Tugu Hotels and Resorts. Ladies, welcome.
Hi, David.
You need to unmute. Perfect. Thank you. Emily, I'm going to start with you. How are things on the ground at the moment? What is the situation?
Okay, so for us, just at the end of March, just after Nyepi, or the Balinese New Year, the Silent Day, we decided to close our 4 resorts, 2 in Bali, in Sanur and Amed, 1 in Lombok, and 1 in Seraya Kecil Island in the Komodos, Labuan Bajo. We've continued to slowly prepare for the pre-opening of our upcoming Labuan Bajo resort, which is to be our 5th resort. And the decision to close the properties was one of the, if not the single toughest decision we have ever made. But our main driving force was to protect the health and safety of the Sudamala family by drastically reducing exposure to health risks. So I stand by this decision. And my father and I have been adamant in retaining as much of our team as possible. This is, again, a really tough decision for us from a financial aspect, especially since we originally expected recovery in May and then July. But from the stance of the company philosophy, this was the easiest decision.
Thanks. Lucienne, would you share some of those views? How's things for you?
Yes, pretty much. I mean, we sort of keep, in the past month, we keep the hotels open a la carte. We have a lot of repeater guests who love to get out from their lockdowns at Tugu Bali. And Tugu Lombok is a bit more complicated because entering Lombok now it's a lot more possible, but coming back to Bali, you still need a swab PCR test. So yeah, most of the rooms are still closed. We opened the restaurants in about a month ago in the rooftop. Of course, with all the social distancing protocols, rigorous disinfectant, so on and so forth. And yes, Tugu is a family business, as you know, David. So our employees are our core family. So we try to keep as many of them as possible for as long as we can. Of course, everybody's taking a cut. There is partial unpaid leave and so on and so forth. But yeah, hopefully we can retain everybody until this started to recover.
What do you think about some of the comments and the hypothesis that Jesper was coming up with earlier in terms of the domestic market? You know, if international is not going to return this year, it's going to be a serious focus on domestic. And I suppose the question is domestic enough? Is it enough for you to kickstart your business?
Yeah, it depends. Well, obviously we're talking about the Bali Tourism, so I'll just talk about the Tugu in Bali. If we only have a small inventory of rooms, I think it will be quite challenging to rely only on domestic market for a while. I think bigger hotels who have a bigger inventory can probably do heavy discounts to attract domestic markets. And maybe with the volume, it will cover the cost. But for small inventories such as ours, it doesn't make so much sense, of course, with all the operational costs and maintaining the level of luxury. So yeah, and I believe that the one and only plan is to work very closely with the government and communicate that we have things under control as fast as possible, and that we have a consistent plan and consistent implementation on this, so we can get back in the safe destination list of every other country.
What do you think about that, Emily? I mean, is the domestic market going to be enough for you? You know, I know typically your guests are from international markets from all over the world.
That's right. In short, David, I don't believe so. Those who traditionally do well with domestic demand will still suffer because the size of the overall pie has shrunken tremendously. Yet the number of businesses wanting and needing a slice of that pie has vastly increased. I think, like Lucienne, our number of inventory is also quite small. In Sanur, we're 34 rooms, and in Amed, we are 8 rooms. But those are not traditionally, like Jesper said earlier, those are not traditionally domestic destinations. It's really interesting because the Sanur hotels have always been quite close to each other, and we try to make some strategic decisions as to how we can promote Sanur as a destination to our domestic market. So we'll see what we can come up with.
Okay, Good luck with that. I mean, because it's if the I mean, what will you do? I mean, what's backup plan? It's to focus on the domestic market, presumably, because if the Australian market and say the Chinese market, the two big inbound regional markets don't come back, what's plan B?
Yeah, well, Bali is really fortunate to be a well-known destination across all markets, and Australians I'm in Australia at the moment. Australians are missing Bali really hard, so they will return as soon as it's permitted. And I know that the first flights back to Bali will be really glorious. Until then, I think we will be catering a lot more to, and when the time comes, to the regional short to medium haul markets.
Right.
So, for example, Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Japan, China, and South Korea. For Sudamala, the most likely way that we will do this is by doing test runs with properties that already have profile with domestic and regional market. And those ones will be Lombok and Labuan Bajo for us instead of Bali.
Thanks. Lucienne, so when the market really does start to return, what can guests expect at Tugu? I mean, what have you been doing during this very quiet period? What's going to be the new protocol and the new in your resorts, and how are they going to look?
Of course, the first thing we have done when this all started is to implement all the strictest hygiene and safety procedures, just like required by WHO, and the disinfecting again and again, the mask, the gloves, the social distancing. But to be honest, I don't really believe we need to change so much. I think, of course, being a developing country like Bali, Indonesia, people are extra cautious about coming here. They worry about what if they get sick and so on and so forth. So we do need to make sure that all of this is 100% there, 100% safe. However, I don't believe that the clients would want to be reminded every second, everywhere they look, that they are in this scary new world. I think when they come to holiday, they still want to feel safe and forget about all that. So not going super overboard that you lose your own authentic positioning and becoming another super sterilized hospital. I think fortunately at Tugu, because of our small inventory and our setup that is pretty spread out, there's not so much that we have to change in terms of that. We never had breakfast buffet. Our dining concept has always been wherever you wish. We can set table in that corner of the garden, that corner of the beach. Our 100 meters beach only have 30, 40 pairs of lounge chairs. There's a lot of private plunge pools. So it allows for people to be social distancing if they like, without being too overbearing. So yeah,
that sounds great. Emily, during the lockdown, have you been? The resorts have been cleaned up, and they're going to be spick and span and ready to open at an appropriate time. What's the environment around? What's the environment like also around the areas in which you're located?
Yeah, well, absolutely. One of the blessings in disguise is that we've been able to do detailed maintenance like never before. Our resorts have never looked more beautiful, actually. The surrounding nature has also had time to replenish itself. So, for example, our coral reef at Sudamala Seraya in Labuan Bajo is even healthier than before. The gorgeous variety of birds that visit our premises have also increased. And the sky, of course, is bluer than ever.
How are the dragons getting on?
Sorry?
How are the dragons getting on?
Oh, the dragons, I'm pretty sure they're pretty happy. No one's poking at them. But they're probably getting fed a little less. So probably would have to go back to, their wild instincts. But yeah, so our office continues to run, though minimally. So technically this means we can reopen whenever post-pandemic world is ready. I agree with Lucienne that, when the time to travel comes back, you don't want to be reminded of this scary new world all the time.
Right.
And in saying that, Sudamala is also preparing new safety and health protocols that will best fit into what our guests have come to expect when they stay with us. And our main advantage is that Sudamala's designs have always put a strong emphasis on space. Our resorts are all spacious and airy, so we already have existing infrastructure to support new protocols. So hopefully not very, very much will change.